Back here on WHIP, Philly's #1 college radio station. Now joining us is the color analyst for Sunday Night Football on Dial Global Radio, and he is NFL Hall of Famer James Lofton. James, Zach Gelb here, Temple Sports Hour. How are you?
Great, Zach. How you doing this morning?
I'm doing great myself, but your Stanford program where you played college ball at is #8 in the nation. They're undefeated going into this Thursday night game. Talk about the job David Shaw's doing.
Well, I was at the game when they played against the Southern California Trojans about a week and a half ago, and I'm on the field before the game watching pregame warm-ups, and it's funny, when you watch your team, you're almost like a parent. And I kept looking at the Trojans thinking, boy, they got all the big kids. You know, they got the kids who look like they're a year or two old and bigger than my kids at the weigh-in and all that, but Stanford played a great football game defensively. That second half that they played against Matt Barkley was probably the best defensive stand that the Cardinals have ever had before, so it was exciting to watch, and looking forward to tonight's game against Washington.
They lose Andrew Luck to the first pick in the NFL draft to the Indianapolis Colts. Are you at all surprised that Shaw is bringing this team to the #8 in the nation, even with the quarterback change?
You know, I think that the big win, obviously, against the Trojans really helped because they were hovering right around 22, and people were saying, well, Andrew Luck is gone. You know, you lost all those offensive linemen, you lost your tight ends, and so everybody's kind of withholding judgment, and that big win really catapulted them. Now, the rest of the season and the Pac-12 conference is going to be tough, so I think it's going to be tough to stay there, but David Shaw has really done a fine job taking over after Jim Harbaugh left 2 years ago. And, you know, it's funny. You see a lot of signs in the stadium saying it wasn't just luck. So that's kind of a neat way to look at it.
Let's get to the NFL and these replacement refs. You were at Sunday Night Football as you call the games for Dial Global Radio. You heard the Ravens fans chanting BS in the third quarter. Monday Night Football, you had that disaster with the interception
stuff,
that was
right?
yeah, that's what it means exactly. I'm not going to say any of what it actually means on the air. And then on Monday Night Football, you had the touchdown, which really wasn't a touchdown. What else is it going to take to get these refs back on the field?
Well, it's going to take someone at the negotiation table to get this thing resolved from the NFL owner's side. When you always look from the outside in, you think, boy, you know, I'd settle for that deal. But obviously, the referees have a stand that they're taking, and it's really over their retirement benefits. The officials who are in now have been getting a defined benefit, and nobody wants to really talk about finances and all that on the air. And they want to continue to get that. And, yeah, the new ones might get that 401k program, which a lot of NFL employees are now having to take. So they understand that, but they'd like to keep what they have and continue on with it. And, you know, it's not a tremendous amount of money, but I think from the NFL's standpoint, it's principle, because they're saying, well, other employees have taken it, and they no longer have the defined benefit. You guys are kind of part-time employees, even though you play such a major role, and we see how major of a role they do play now. So, yeah, there needs to be a little more give and take so that we can get back the great quality of officiating that we had.
If
you never thought you'd say that before.
Yeah, no doubt about it. And if you're to take this thing at 100%, how much blame do you put on Roger Goodell, the NFL commissioner?
Well, I really like Roger Goodell. I've enjoyed my times when I've been around him. He's honest, he's forthcoming. But at some point in the negotiations, somebody decided that this is where we're headed. And Roger Goodell probably doesn't head up every negotiation session. He kind of has an overview, you know, because just think about all the things that he has to be over. You know, every fine that goes out, Roger Goodell isn't fining the person. Once they hand him the list, they say, okay, look, Roger, this is what we've got going on this week. Okay. Yeah, he's kind of like the principal of the school. He doesn't teach every student, but he's responsible for everything.
Well, Goodell's forte since he's been in office has been player safety. We saw what happened with the bounty scandal. Does putting these replacement refs contradict what he's going here with player safety?
You would think that it might, but I don't think that it does. You know, it's such a violent game that players are going to get injured. Yes, they might get injured because someone's not calling a game as tightly as before, so players might take a little more liberty. You know, you watch the tail end of the Packers game against the Seahawks, and Sam Shields was the victim of two offensive pass interference plays. One where Sidney Rice is climbing over his back. Now, if he had gotten hurt there and there had been no call, if he had come down and twisted his knee, or when he got pushed, if he had gotten stomped by somebody else and broken a finger. Sure, he could have gotten hurt there. So those things can happen, and they would happen with the other officials, but maybe it might have gotten cleaned up. The one thing that you've seen a lot of, and I know you guys saw a lot of it when the Ravens played the Eagles, how chippy the game was, how much pushing and shoving there was after plays. And that's just not indicative of what the permanent officials have allowed to happen. They have a little more grasp on the game because people know those officials. So you see those faces all the time. Even though players may not know their names, they know those officials. Those officials know the players. They talk to them, and they converse back and forth. So when they tell them to stop something, they stop it.
And the players know that they're going to be able to get away with a lot. You look at those Ravens offensive linemen on Sunday Night Football, they were holding Vince Wilfork all the way, and there was barely any holding calls being held because, hey, if I'm an offensive lineman and I know I'm going to be able to get away with some of these holding penalties and everything's not going to be called, I would go out there and I would pull down the defensive lineman as well to try to stop him.
Yeah, you would, but, you're still trying to play your technique. You're trying to do what's right, and the last-ditch effort, offensive linemen hold when they get out of position. And Vince Wilfork is great at knowing when an offensive lineman is a little bit out of position. He may not be going to get a sack or get a tackle, but he can twist and turn his body and really make it appear like he was being held when he really wasn't being held. He's a great athlete and probably a great actor also.
If you were playing in today's game, would you boycott or take a knee, something that was being discussed in the Green Bay Packers flight home? Would you possibly do that for the next game?
I don't know. I think that, it's been loud and clear that these officials are in a little bit over their head. They've tried to do a good job. I remember at the Hall of Fame game, the first exhibition game of the year, you had these replacement officials, and the kind of the word at the time was, well, it might last all the way up until 2 weeks into the season. Well, here we are going into week 4, and we had the debacle that we had in week 3 on Monday Night Football, a large stage, and then, some controversial plays on Sunday Night Football, the largest stage that we have all week long. So it just, everyone who's associated with this game wants the best outcome on Sundays and Mondays and Thursdays, and that really relies on getting the best people in there to call the game.
Zach Gelb here, WHIP, Philly's #1 college radio station on Temple Sports Hour, talking to the NFL Hall of Famer James Lofton. LaShawn McCoy, let's get to the game that you're going to be calling this Sunday night, Eagles-Giants. LaShawn McCoy only had 13 carries last week. Could we expect more carries from him going up against this Giants defense?
I would think you'd expect more touches. He's such a great receiver also. Their screen game has always been really good, the Philadelphia Eagles. And LaShawn McCoy runs the ball exceptionally well. Obviously, when you're watching the Eagles this year, the turnovers have been an epidemic. 12 already to start the season. And you keep thinking that once they play a clean game, they're going to beat somebody by 30 points. Now, the Giants coming in with this front four that has been pretty good so far, but not exceptional. They may turn their motors up a little bit this week. I don't think we could have a better game on Sunday night than when you look at all the matchups going on. And the Eagles and the Giants always put on a great show.
The Eagles' offensive line is very young. They've had a lot of injuries partake over the course of the season so far. And the Giants' pass rush with JPP, OCU Manure, Justin Tuck. I grew up in New York, and I'm a Patriot fan, so I know what the Giants' pass rush can do. But do you believe Michael Vick, with all the way that he plays, can stay healthy through a 16-game season?
Well, if you were to ask that of any quarterback, because the quarterback's job is to kind of protect himself a little bit, but Michael Vick does so much more for his team. He's great at giving his receivers a chance to get open, even when he's just standing in the pocket. He'll hold the ball. He's as tough as the day is long. We all watch him play, and it's funny, when he's running, I think he's running so fast, and he has such great forward lean, like any sprinter would. It's hard for him to then go from that lean to sliding. If he were a baseball player and a base stealer, he would dive headfirst at every bag, because that's just the way he kind of propels himself. So it is harder for him to protect himself. And a couple years ago, Andy Reid went out on a limb and told the officials, "Hey, you guys are allowing my quarterback to get hit more than other quarterbacks," and it probably was accurate. And so Michael Vick takes more punishment than a lot of other guys, and sometimes he doesn't get the flag that a lot of other quarterbacks get, and I think it's just because he's such a great athlete. And it's kind of like Shaquille O'Neal in basketball. He's so big and so strong. A foul against him, it really isn't a foul that you call.
We're talking to James Lofton. And James, when I ask people who are the three best quarterbacks in the league, I always get the answer of Brady, Rodgers, and Breeze. And I really don't think, and Eli Manning has been tremendous in this league ever since 2007 where he won those 2 Super Bowls. And Eli's been on a run lately. I think he's been the best quarterback in the NFL to start off the season. Where do you rank Eli Manning right now when you look at all the quarterbacks in the NFL?
Well, I think you need to kind of measure it a little differently because really the ultimate prize in this business is winning Super Bowls. So if you were to do that, guys with 2 wins out there or multiple wins, Brady, Roethlisberger, and Eli Manning. And those guys have been the most successful in leading their teams to victories. Eli Manning has been terrific lately and done it with an assortment of wide receivers. Ramses Barden stepped in for Hakeem Nicks last week and had a big ball game. So, yeah, Eli Manning has been impressive, and it kind of goes back to preseason last year when he was doing that radio interview and he dubbed himself.
He said he was elite.
Yeah, sure. And you've got to believe that in your own mind. But we do get caught up in, who are the best 3, who are the best 5, and it just depends. On different Sundays, it's different guys, and they find different ways to do it. But when I was coaching in the NFL, I got to coach for, I think, 8 years, 7 years with the Chargers and 1 year with the Raiders. We had a way of evaluating players at the end of the year. And Marty Schottenheimer said, I want you to list guys who play at your position and on this team who can win for us. And then players we can win with, and then players that we need better. And there are lots of quarterbacks in this league who can win for you on Sundays. And there are some quarterbacks who you can win with. But that win for you is I think, bigger than ever because they play such a prominent role and you ask them to do so much. It used to be if a quarterback threw the ball 30 times in a game, boy, that was a lot. Now, if you throw 40 times, that's kind of average, and you want about 65% completion percentage, and that's about the standard. But if a quarterback can add some intangibles with some of those other things, if he's a great runner, a great leader, those things we're always looking for, and we become so excited about fantasy football that we want to see 300-yard passers. Well, you see a 300-yard passer in a loss almost every week, so that's not a big deal to me.
And Eli Manning, he has a nice new big target in the red zone, Martellus Bennett, the former Cowboy. How do the Eagles try to contain him this week? He has 3 touchdowns already on the year.
I mean, that is so crazy that Martellus Bennett, languished in the shadow of Jason Witten and really couldn't do anything right in the eyes of the Cowboys. They drafted him high. He had a lot of promise, but, when you have a guy like Jason Witten playing in front of you, you get just the crumbs that fall off the table. So now he gets thrust into a starting role. The Cowboys did turn around, or the Giants did turn around, and they drafted a tight end in the 4th round. So Martellus Bennett said, I've been in this situation before, but this is when I'm going to be a starter, I'm going to do my best to take advantage of that role. And he's a matchup nightmare. At 6'6", 265 pounds, and runs well. And you saw him elevate for the ball. And it's one thing to be 6'6" and be stuck on the ground, but a guy who can go up and get it, that's a tough matchup for any defensive back.
We're talking to James Lofton, the NFL Hall of Famer. James, 2 more questions right before we let you go. Hakeem Nicks and Dominique Hickson are both expected to be back for the New York Football Giants. How important is it for the Giants to get those 2 wide receivers back going up against a pretty good secondary the Philadelphia Eagles have?
Well, the Eagles have a great secondary, and I think that the pass rush has been improved from what I've seen and some footage that I've watched this year. So that's really helped the secondary out. Secondaries and corners are the most visible position. You're going to throw that ball at them. You're going to throw it up because, it's funny. Years and years ago, the old Alabama coach used to say that only a couple of bad things can happen when you throw the football. You get intercepted or you get an interference call. Well, so many good things can happen now. Defensive penalties abound. So you throw that ball up, and a lot of good things can happen.
Is there any concern with you with this Giants running back? You know, they lost Brandon Jacobs. He's now playing in San Francisco. Ahmad Bradshaw hasn't been all that impressive. David Wilson has had troubles holding on to the football. Where do you rank this Giants run game right now this early in the season?
Well, that was David Wilson's MO when he was coming out of Virginia Tech. And, you know, when you have a guy as talented as he is, and you watch him play, and boy, he's explosive, he's physical, he's a tough, instinctive runner. And he's so tough that won't go down easily, so it's that second or third guy that comes in that forces the ball out. So you'd like to coach that out of him, and they'll have to be patient with him and have the confidence in him to play him, because if you put the ball on the ground and then all of a sudden you don't play for a game and a half, it kind of sits in the back of your head. And in practice, everybody's always trying to rip the ball out from you and walkthroughs and drills and all that. So he's just got to get to the point where he's really holding on to that football, and the Giants have confidence in him because he's a good player.
James Lofton will be on the call along with my good buddy Dave Sims. I'm only 18 years old, but I'll tell you this: Dave Sims is.
Are you allowed to stay up for the end of the game?
Yes, I am. I'm a college student, so there's no mom and dad here to tell me when to go to bed. But I'll tell you this: Sims has been a good friend of mine. He's been on the show many times. My dad actually worked with him over at WFAN Radio when Dave probably still had hair. But are you guys going to get cheesesteaks when you come here to Philadelphia this weekend?
You know, we sample the finest delicacies of every Sunday night football. You know, last week we were in Baltimore, and obviously I feasted on crab cakes, and I had to eat a couple extra because Dave wasn't there.
Well, if you're in the Philadelphia area, which you're going to be, you got to go to Bella Kinwood if you have the time on the main line and get a Mama's Philly cheesesteak. It will be the best cheesesteak you ever have.
I'm going to have to tell Dave about that, and hopefully he'll pay for it.
Now, do you have any recommendations for me? You played in Buffalo for a few years. I'm going up to Buffalo this week.
Yeah.
I'm assuming it's the Anchor Bar or Duffy's.
No.
Okay.
It's Lenova's.
Lenova.
And they deliver.
Okay.
And you want the barbecue chicken wing, which is kind of char grilled a little bit before it's tossed in the barbecue sauce. My mouth is watering right now as we speak.
So when I go to Buffalo, I have to get hot wings, but now you want me to get barbecue wings?
I want you to get the barbecued wings. Don't mess around with the hot wings, the atomic, and all that. You want something that tastes elegant. And this wing is crispy, and the barbecue sauce on it, it's wonderful.
Well, James, we'll have to get you on again for like a food review or something like that. I appreciate the time, my friend. Be well.
All right. Nice talking to you, Zach. Study hard.